In this podcast episode, I wanted to talk about how you can change your career, how you can pursue your dream job without ruining your life. And why this emphasis on ruining your life? I know it sounds a bit dramatic, but it can happen if you're not careful. If you're not careful and just leave your job without any plan or vision whatsoever, just because you're sick of it and you just want to get out of there and do something else, but you don't have a plan, you can actually end up in a dark place. And even I myself have experienced that in the past. It wasn't as bad. I was able to pull myself out because I had that grand vision, those dreams for myself. I knew what I actually wanted to accomplish. But still, it was very, very hard. There were times where I was really second guessing myself and thinking, did I make the wrong decision or not? But luckily, thank God, here I am today, and I can confidently say that I am so happy that I made that decision to leave my banking job in the financial industry that I didn't enjoy to pursue more creative things. And I really hope that my content can also help you a bit with that. But don't get me wrong, I don't want to give you the impression that changing careers is something that's too risky to do, because after all, if you want to accomplish something in your life that is worth it, that is valuable and meaningful to you, then yes, you need to take some risk, but that risk better be calculated, right? So the reason that you clicked on this video might be that right now there is this dream swirling around in your head, something else that you'd rather do, another job, another career than what you're doing right now. Perhaps the job that you're doing right now is something that you just barely tolerate, just something you do to pay the bills, but you kind of feel stuck in it. You feel like there's no future to it. Maybe there is a future in the company or industry you're working in, as in a career path or a career progression, but that's just not something that you're motivated to work towards. That's not something that you want. One thing that I used to ask myself back then in my banking days was, would I actually want to get promoted in this industry? Would I want to have my boss's job or other jobs in upper management? And the answer was a clear no. And that was a clear sign to me that I gotta get out of here, because otherwise I'm just wasting my time. I'm just hanging around here, working in my project management job. And right now it's kind of okayish, but what about in 5 years from now? How will I feel then? Will I regret having wasted my time in a subpar job? So that's something that I definitely didn't want to do. And maybe you're thinking the same. Maybe you're thinking, yes, this job is kind of okay and it pays the bills, but I only live once, and I know that I'm capable of doing so much more. I have so much more within me. I have all these other interests that I want to explore and all these other things that I want to try out. I don't want to be forever stuck in this job. And perhaps you think that now is the time to finally make the leap or the change into that other career field, but fear is holding you back. And I think that by far, fear is the biggest thing holding anyone back from changing careers. Oftentimes, it's not a matter of lack of skill or knowledge. I mean, at that point in time, of course, you lack the particular skill or knowledge you need for that new job that you want to do, but that's something that you can learn. And I'm pretty sure that most of you have the capacity to learn the new skills and knowledge that are required for that new career, unless you're, let's say, very, very bad at maths and physics, but you want to be a rocket scientist. That's maybe a different thing. But let's say you are working in marketing right now, but you want to be a software developer instead, or you want to work in the arts, or you want to become an interior designer or so. Those are all things that you can easily, well, not easily, but that you can learn within 1 to 4 years, depending on what level of skill you want to have. So before I get into these two things that you need to do before you make that career change, I do want to give you the let's not say certainty, because nothing in life is certain, but I want to encourage you to find the strength, the willpower, the motivation within you to at least try it. I mean, yes, things may not work out the way that you planned them to. At least in my case, things didn't pan out exactly the way that I wanted them, but it doesn't matter, because all that matters is that now I am in a much, much better place than I was before, because I was listening to my heart, to my intuition, to my dreams. Yes, that's actually very important. You have to listen to your dreams because they tell you something really important. And the same thing can also happen to you. You might plan that you want to go from A to B, but you might not exactly end up at B, but C or D. But as long as C or D is better than where you are now, then it's worth the effort, don't you think? So now let's get into the 2 things that you need to do before you make that leap, change your careers, and quit your job, hand in your resignation letter. So hold off on that until you've got these 2 things in order. And the first one is, this has to do with money. I know it's a topic that people don't really like to talk about. It's something that's very sensitive and nerve-wracking for many people, but it's one thing that's super important and that can make or break your entire career-changing journey. So the first thing that you gotta do before you change careers, before you quit your job, is to accumulate a career freedom fund. So this is a new term that I came up with, Career Freedom Fund, or short CFF. What this basically is a kind of FU money. And you've heard this before, right? FU money is the money that you have, kind of like an emergency fund, a few thousand or a few $10,000 that you've accumulated, that gives you safety, that gives you a buffer for your living expenses, so that when you're sick and tired of your job for whatever reason, you can just call it quits and say, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm leaving and I don't have to worry because I have money saved up. I have money to take care of my bills, to take care of my family. And yeah, if you have a family, of course, that FU money is going to be much more. But the reason that I called it Career Freedom Fund instead of just FU money is that I feel that the term FU is just associated with saying goodbye and I don't care, I just want to leave. Whereas the Career Freedom Fund is more associated with having a plan and a vision for your career and having the means, so the money, which is the main resource to make it happen. Of course, the other resource is also time. You also need time. But the funny thing is that in order to have time or make more time to make a career change, you have to have money, because otherwise who's going to pay the bills, unless you have super rich parents who still provide for you. But I doubt that. So some of you might already be in a very good place with your finances and you have a lot of money saved up. Let's say that's $100,000 or even $200,000 that you've originally earmarked for retirement. So this could be one of the more difficult questions. If you have a large amount of money saved up for retirement, let's say that's $200,000, $300,000, would it be wise to take some money of that to put towards your career change? Because you might not be able to directly jump into your new career, right? You need to take some time off, and during that time, you need money to finance that transition, and you need money to pay for whatever course or degree or certificate training that you need to do. Is it wise to take part of that money and invest it into yourself right now? And I would say the answer is yes, because you can always earn more money. Of course, it takes time to earn more money, but I'm not really in the camp of people who think that you should save all your money for retirement, everything for later. I mean, that is super important, but what's even more critical, I think, is that right now, when you're younger, I'm assuming you're watching right now, you're in your 20s, 30s, or maybe early 40s, as soon as possible, while you still can, you have to get yourself in the best possible place career-wise. meaning make that pivot in your career as soon as possible. Because if you wait until retirement, until you're 60, or maybe you work even until you're 70, later on you might not have the energy or the mood really anymore to start your new career, and then you might look back on your life a bit regretting, why did I not do A, B, and C when I was still 30 or even 40 or even 50? So I would really not risk playing around with that amount of regret. And if I had a lot of money saved up for retirement, I would definitely take out a small portion of that, let's say $10,000, $20,000, to invest into myself, into my own reskilling or whatever, so that I can change careers and set myself on the right course, so that I can get closer to a life, to a daily life that's meaningful. So working in a job that brings joy to me, where I find purpose and meaning and so on. So, but what if you do not have money saved up? What if you only have $10,000 or even zero, or you're even in debt? That's a completely different situation. If you're in debt, and by this I mean consumer debt, bad debt primarily, credit card debt, auto loans, and so on, I would definitely try and pay that off first before you leave your job. I mean, definitely. Otherwise, that could really ruin your life. It could mess up your debt situation, your whole financial situation, and then once you quit your job, you don't have any money coming in, and then the whole situation gets worse. So if you have a financial problem at the moment, if you have big debt, then definitely take care of that first. Now, if that's out of the way, let's say that you are now at $0, or you just have a couple $1,000s in your account. How much money do you actually need to save up, or what I call the Career Freedom Fund, so that you can quit your job? It really depends on your living circumstances, your living expenses, and also your goals. So let's start with your goals. So first of all, you need to have clarity on what you want to achieve. Things might still change in the process. You might aim for B, but then, like I said, you end up doing C. But at least for now, you have to have clarity that this is kind of the ballpark of what I want to do, and try and crystallize that further until you have as much clarity as possible. Because if you're clear on what you want to achieve, let's say that your goal is you want to become a wedding photographer, you want to be self-employed and earn money from that, or you want to be a graphic designer working at some big media agency or whatever. If you know exactly what your goal is, then it is easier for you to calculate how much money you need to make that transition. So let's just say that for whatever you're trying to do, let's say you want to do graphic design, you need to take some courses and do some certificates and buy some software and so on. And after you calculated everything, you arrive at the number $10,000. So I don't know how much it is. This is just an example. So $10,000 goes towards your future career for building up your skills. But then you also have to plan the money that you need to pay for your living expenses during the transition period. And this is what I mean. In an ideal world, you would want to quit your job and then immediately hop into the next job without any break at all. Maybe you just take a 2 weeks vacation or so because you need it, because you deserve it. But basically, you kind of do a job switch instead of like quitting it and then having a dry spell for a very long time. But in reality, that's often not the case. If you jump from one job to another within the same industry, that might very easily happen, right? But if you're doing something completely different, for example, previously you were working in HR and now you want to be a graphic designer, the transition is usually not that smooth. At least that's what I've seen, and that's what I've experienced in my own life. For some people, if that's very well planned, maybe it can take 3 months until they've transitioned. So, by the way, what I mean by transition here is that you've quit your job and you've started your new job in that new field and are starting to earn money, which covers your living expenses. That's what I mean by making your full transition. So in reality, for some people, that can be as fast as 3 months, for some 6 months, for some 1 year, and for others even 2 to 3 years. Especially, I would say, if you're aiming to work in the arts. In general, it's very difficult to make a living purely as an artist. Most artists, let's say actors and so on, they have other side jobs like waitressing, working as a barista, or whatever to make ends meet. It's quite rare that artists, especially in their early years, can immediately make enough money to cover their living expenses. So you know better about your target career field than I do. So it's a really great idea to think it through in detail. How long, based on other people's experiences, does it take to go from earning zero in this field to making a full-time living? And be very generous in your calculation here. Be very conservative, I mean. So let's say you think it takes 1 year, then double that to 2 years. Now, if you say you need 2 years to transition into that new career, then next calculate how much money do you need for your living expenses during these 2 years. And the best thing is that if you already have a budget and you've been tracking your expenses, you know exactly how much that is. Let's say $40,000 per year. So 2 years would be $80,000. So you would need at least $80,000 saved up so that you can quit your job and make that transition. But here's a caveat. If you plan to work in a part-time job during that time, if that's something that's possible while you're getting your new degree or certificate or whatever and earning some part-time income, then of course you can reduce that amount from, let's say, $80,000 to $60,000 or even $40,000. You have to really do the calculation as detailed as possible, and then you need to start saving up that money. And I know it's not as easy as it sounds. If you've had problems saving up money in general for whatever purpose, then saving up $40,000 or $80,000 might seem like a crazy goal for you, something that's impossible. But I'll tell you, if changing jobs, changing your whole life is something that you really, really want, trust me, you will be able to do that. You have to make some sacrifices. You might need to downsize your lifestyle, move to a smaller place, eat out less, shop less, and everything. But it is possible. It is doable. You just really have to want it and really cut down on all the unnecessary things in your life so that you can move towards your future better life. And the best way to keep you motivated to save up that money is to break down the amount. Let's just say that your goal is to save up $50,000 in 2 years. That amount might sound very intimidating. So break that $50,000 down into 2 years. So per year, that's $25,000. Divided again by, let's say, 12 months, that's a bit more than $2,000. Let's just say that your monthly goal is $2,000. Then calculate backwards what would need to happen in your life with your living expenses so that you could save $2,000. Perhaps if right now you're not earning that much, it's impossible to save $2,000. The only way that you could do that is perhaps move in with a friend, split rent, or move back in with your parents, which I would say is not something that's really crazy. I mean, a lot of people do that, move back with their parents just for a short time to save some money, and after that move out again. So the other solution would of course be to earn more money. And I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive. You want to quit your job, so why care about that promotion? But that might be a tactic that you would need to employ to save up that amount. Okay, so let's just say that we've got number one solved. You already got your career freedom fund together, or at least you got a plan for that. What is the next thing, number two, that you have to make sure you do before you quit your job so this whole career change effort thing doesn't ruin your life, which is to test drive your career, to get some career proof, in other words. So let me explain. One mistake that people do when changing careers is to think that everything is just going to be easy and smooth. So they decide just to quit their old job first and see how it goes later. See if or not you'll get a job in that new industry. And if not, then maybe you'll go back to that your old job, or you'll get a part-time job or whatever. Basically, you'll just go with the flow and figure out as you go. And if you have tons of money saved up, then Perhaps that could work for you if that's your style. I mean, it's definitely not what I would do. I would really freak out at that feeling of uncertainty, but some people do it that way. Some people have the money and then they just spontaneously quit and just see how it goes. But the better thing to do, I would say, is to plan it out a bit more and even test drive your new career before you quit. And why would you test drive your career? What does it even mean? It's not exactly the same like test driving a car. When you go and buy a car, you can actually sit in the car and feel exactly how it's like to drive it on the road. So you get the exact sense of what it's like to actually own the car and buy the car. But when you test drive a career, you can't exactly do it. I mean, sometimes you can do it. If you want to become a surgeon, but you're not there yet with your education, your training and everything, of course, you can't just test drive and do a surgery on somebody. But there are a lot of other careers where you can actually test drive it. For example, when I talked about the wedding photography example earlier, if you're into photography and you especially enjoy taking wedding pictures, then that's something that you can definitely try and do. Let's say a family member's wedding or at a friend's wedding or even at a stranger's wedding, you could just put up a post, an ad, and offer your free services for wedding photography. And ideally, if you already have a photography portfolio, you can put that up as well. But if wedding photography is what interests you, you want to make sure that you try that out. Or let's just say you want to become a psychotherapist because it sounds like something that you could do very well, but you've actually never done it before. Some of the things that you could, for example, do is to immerse yourself in research papers, because that's definitely something that you would do if you're a psychotherapist, to keep up to date on the latest research and findings, and also take some time to talk with some good friends. Tell them that your goal is to become a psychotherapist and spend some time with them talking about some deeper issues. I mean, of course, this situation would not at all mirror what really happens in the office of a psychotherapist, but if talking to a friend for longer than 1 hour, let's say, irritates you or makes you impatient or so, then maybe you're not cut out to be a psychotherapist. Because I'm not one, I wouldn't know exactly what you would want to test. But if you already have a good idea of the career, the new job that you want to do, then I bet that you would kind of have a feel of what sort of things you would want to test. So I would encourage you to make a list of that. Just write down 10 different things that you would need to do to kind of research and find out if this is really for you. And if you're planning to work in the arts, it's even easier in a way to find proof for that. Let's say you want to go into writing or into copywriting or whatever. Actually try and produce some work, write something while you're still in that job. I know that you're already tired and so busy with your current job and you don't have any time, but I really challenge you to carve out some time. Take the time once per week or on the weekends to dive deeper, get hands-on and produce some work in that field. And based on that, you will actually have some proof of whether or not you're suited to work in that field. Or maybe after writing down, typing a few lines or writing a blog, you realize that, oh no, I could never do this because it turns out it's not as fun as I imagined it to be. So whatever it is, whatever job it is that you're trying to pivot to, make sure that you research it thoroughly and you try to get some experience in it and try to get some proof for yourself that this is actually something that you want to do, not something that just sounds good in your head to be a magazine writer, for example, but that's something that you've already done. You've already written, let's say, 10 or 20 articles. And once you did it, you can reassess and rethink whether or not it's a good idea for you to make that change to that new career. And if the answer is yes, and the whole experiment kind of reinforced your belief and your desire that you want to do that, then congratulations. Then go for it. If you have the money, the CFF, you have everything planned out, you have the resources, and you also have proof that this is really something that you want to do and that suits your personality, then your chances of succeeding are very high. And I'm not saying that everything will be smooth and that there won't be any challenges, but at least you've prepared yourself, you've set yourself up with the basic gear that you need. So guys, let me know in the comments below whether or not this podcast episode was useful to you. I would really appreciate it if you could write down in the comments below what you would like to hear from me. Maybe some of you have watched some of my previous podcast episodes and you know a bit about my history, my career history. So feel free to ask me some questions and also what you would like to hear more of. And I will definitely consider making it into a full-length podcast episode. So as always, guys, I thank you so much for being here with me. I wish you all the best for your career. And remember, no matter where you are right now in your life and in your career, things can always change for the better if you just try. So have a great day, guys, and I'll see you soon.